Wash a $70 dress shirt 10 times. The collar starts to ripple. It curls at the points like a potato chip left in the sun. Iron it flat, and it holds for one wear, then bows again. There is no repair. That is a fused collar. Glue instead of stitching. 6 brands on this list answered with glue. 3 answered with stitching. Same price range, opposite outcome. Every collar hides an interlining, the stiff layer sandwiched inside that gives it shape. Fused construction bonds that layer to the fabric with heat and thermoplastic adhesive. Cheap, fast, scalable. But every wash cycle, every dryer cycle, every iron pass puts that glue through heat and moisture again. The bond weakens. It separates in patches you can't see yet. Then the fabric stops moving as one piece with the interlining underneath, and the collar bubbles for good. No steam iron brings that back. Floating construction skips the adhesive entirely. The interlining is sewn in loose, moving independently, nothing to delaminate. Check a shirt in your own closet right now. Pinch the collar point, flex it. Stiff with a faint crackle, that's fused. Soft, pliable, moving as one piece, that's floating. No tag tells you this, no price tells you this. The collar always tells the truth, the tag never does. Brand 1, Van Heusen. Van Heusen doesn't need an introduction. It's the fallback brand on every Kohl's and Macy's rack. Bought not because anyone researched it, but because it's priced like a safe decision. The marketing leans on one phrase: wrinkle-free, a resin finish cross-linked into the cotton poly blend under heat. Real technology. Also unrelated to what actually fails first, Van Heusen's own listings describe fully fused seams and a fused collar, interlining bonded on with heat-activated adhesive, not stitched in loose. Worse, the same curing heat that sets the wrinkle-resistant finish adds thermal stress before the shirt is even worn once, and every wash after compounds it. The marketed technology and the hidden flaw are fighting each other, and the collar loses first. These shirts typically run $40 to $70, often discounted to $25 to $45 at Kohl's. At that price, fused construction is standard, unremarkable. The problem is what sits at the exact same $50 to $70 tag elsewhere. A shirt from a brand nobody's heard of, floating interlining, sewn not glued. Same shelf, same price. One collar survives 100 washes. Van Heusen's survives a season. Curling at the points long before the job it was bought for is over. Brand 2, Kenneth Cole. Kenneth Cole shows up in this category the same way it showed up in the last one. A name from the suits list, wearing a different garment, cutting the same corner. The pitch here is Tech Fit, a stretch collar band marketed to flex up to ½ an inch for comfort through a long day, built into a cotton polyester spandex blend. Sounds like an upgrade over a plain dress shirt. Functionally, it's stretch fabric wrapped around the same fusing problem every basic shirt has. The flex claim is about the collar band's give, not its construction, and the interlining underneath is still bonded on, with heat-set adhesive rather than sewn in loose. Stretch doesn't stop delamination, it just distracts from it for a while. These shirts run roughly $60 to $90 at full price, regularly discounted into the $25 to $45 range on Kenneth Cole's own site, and at Walmart. At that real price, a floating interlining shirt from an unadvertised competitor sits on the exact same shelf for the exact same money without the flex fabric story attached. Same price, same collar promise. One brand spent its budget on stretch marketing, the other spent it on the seam you can't see, which is the only one that mattered after wash number 10. Brand 3, Perry Ellis. Perry Ellis crosses over from the last list too. Same corner cutting logic, different garment. And the tell here is identical. Check whether it's ever sold at full price. Perry Ellis dress shirts list at $69.50 to $98 on Macy's own site. But browse the same page on almost any given day, and you'll find markdowns of 40 to 60% standard, not seasonal. The discount is the actual price. The construction underneath matches that reality, not the sticker. These are fused collar shirts, built on luxe twill cotton poly blends, marketed with words like versatile and staple that say nothing about durability. One recurring pattern in owner reviews: shirts running smaller than labeled, with sleeve and neck measurements shrinking further after the first few washes, a common symptom of a collar and cuff interlining pulling against fabric it was never truly bonded to in a stable way. At the real transaction price, roughly $30 to $50 after markdown, Perry Ellis sits directly beside brands offering genuine floating interlining for the same money. No discount required because the tag was honest to begin with. A shirt permanently on sale was never worth its listed price. Perry Ellis isn't selling a shirt. It's selling the illusion that $98 was ever the real number. Brand 4, Express. Express doesn't sell dress shirts so much as it sells a name for next season's version of the same shirt. Its Whole 1, MX, and Modern Tech lines are built around one idea: extra slim, print-forward, stretch cotton shirts, refreshed in a new pattern almost every cycle. Floral 1 month, geoprint the next, striped after that. That constant turnover is the pitch. It also means the shirt was never engineered to be kept. Underneath the prints, the collar and cuff construction is standard fused interlining set into a cotton stretch blend, no different from any mall basic, and the same delamination risk applies. But because Express treats a shirt as a fashion object with a shelf life measured in seasons rather than years, nobody's testing whether the collar survives past the pattern's popularity. Extra slim cuts also put more repeated stress on the collar band with every wear, which accelerates the same fusing breakdown a looser shirt would take longer to show. Express dress shirts run roughly $50 to $70 at full price, frequently discounted 30 to 90% on resale and clearance sites within a year of release. At that same $50 to $70 tag, a shirt built with floating interlining will outlast 3 of Express's printed reinventions. One brand is selling you a look for one season. The other is selling you a collar built to survive whichever look you're wearing next. Brand 5, H&M. H&M dress shirts sit at the bottom of this price ladder, and the marketing barely bothers to argue otherwise. A basic long-sleeve dress shirt runs $25 to $40, sometimes less on clearance, pitched as an office-ready basic for almost nothing. Menswear forum threads on H&M's shirts tell a split story, but the recurring complaint is specific. Collars too soft to hold shape under a jacket and tie, or collars losing their structure within a handful of washes, with fabric quality described as inconsistent from shirt to shirt, even within the same line. That inconsistency is the tell. Budget dress shirts at this tier use fused collar interlining and cotton poly blends, typically single-ply rather than the denser two-ply weaves used further up the market, and single-ply fabric gives the adhesive less structure to bond to in the first place. Less to hold onto means an earlier failure point. A shirt built to survive one interview, one wedding, maybe a first week on a new job, not a career. At the same price, $25 to $40, quality still varies wildly by line, but the honest comparison is production cost, not marketing copy. A shirt at this price point was never engineered for a decade of wear, and no brand at this shelf is pretending otherwise. H&M isn't the most dishonest name on this list. It's just the cheapest, and cheap collars fail first. Brand 6, Banana Republic. This is where it starts to hurt. Banana Republic sits at the top of the price ladder on this list, and callback fans of our suit breakdown already know the name. Same brand, same gap between price and construction, different garment. The pitch is premium cotton poplin, tailored, fabric described as engineered for an all-day polished look. That's real marketing copy, pulled straight from Banana Republic's own product pages. What it doesn't mention is what's inside the collar. These shirts, including the wrinkle-resistant non-iron lines, use standard fused interlining bonded into the collar and cuff, no different structurally from a shirt at a third of the price. The premium language describes the outer poplin weave, not the layer underneath that determines whether the collar survives past year one. Banana Republic dress shirts retail for $70 to $100, occasionally more for tailored fits, frequently marked final sale once discounted, which means the retailer isn't even standing behind the markdown price with a return window. At that $70 to $100 tag, you're deep into territory where floating interlining construction exists at competing brands for the same or less money. Banana Republic offers none of it. What it offers is a name from a mall storefront and cotton that looks sharp in the fitting room mirror. Every brand below this price point was at least honest about what it delivered. Banana Republic charges the most and explains the least. Brand 7, Kamakura Shirts. Kamakura doesn't try to compete on marketing. It's a Japanese shirt maker most American shoppers have never heard of, known almost entirely through menswear forums and enthusiast blogs rather than advertising. The appeal on the surface is simple. Broadcloth and poplin dress shirts in classic cuts. Priced like a mid-tier department store shirt, nothing flashy about the pitch. Crack open the collar, and the difference shows immediately. Menswear writers who've dissected the construction describe Kamakura's collar as two unfused layers, the interlining sewn into position between the outer facings rather than bonded with adhesive. The same traditional method used by English shirt makers on shirts costing 4 times as much. There's no thermoplastic bond to break down, no delamination risk, because there was never a glue layer holding it together in the first place. The trade-off, and it's an honest one, is that unfused collars can develop light puckering at the edges over time if the interlining and outer fabric shrink at slightly different rates through washing. A cosmetic quirk, not a structural failure, and nothing like the permanent bubbling. A fused collar suffers when its adhesive gives out. Kamakura's spread collar dress shirts run around $79, occasionally less on sale. That's less than Banana Republic's fused shirts, and roughly in line with Kenneth Cole's stretch collar line. Same shelf, same price bracket, opposite collar. One brand spent its budget on stretch fabric branding. Kamakura spent it on the seam nobody photographs, which turns out to be the only one that matters. Brand 8, Eaton. Eaton carries none of the direct-to-consumer story the last brand did. This is a 1928 Swedish shirt maker, sold through its own boutiques and premium department store floors, priced like it wants you to notice. The pitch leans hard on craftsmanship language, dozens of components, thousands of stitches, decades of heritage. That kind of copy usually means nothing. Here it's oddly literal. Eaton's own construction details, confirmed by outside menswear reviewers, describe each shirt built from roughly 45 separate parts and stitched with around 12,000 individual stitches, with both sleeve and side seams run through a double sewing process using single needle lock stitching rather than a single quick pass. That's not marketing shorthand. It's a materially denser seam than anything on the fused, mass-produced end of this list, and it's paired with a heavier, more structured interlining built, specifically to hold collar shape, through repeated wear rather than a thin bonded layer cut for speed. Eaton dress shirts retail from roughly $195 to $250, sometimes more for evening collar styles. Compare that to Banana Republic's $70 to $100 fused shirts, and the gap looks brutal until you account for what's actually happening inside the collar. You're not paying double for a logo, you're paying for construction density that a glued interlining was never built to match. Eaton's price is the least surprising thing about it. The stitch count is. Brand number 9, Turnbull and Asser. Turnbull and Asser doesn't need to raise its voice about heritage. The credential does that on its own. Founded in 1885 on Jermyn Street, the shirt maker has dressed Winston Churchill and outfitted more than one James Bond in a dinner shirt on screen. That kind of pedigree usually gets attached to garments that trade on the name and nothing else. Not here. Turnbull and Asser's own construction notes, confirmed by independent menswear reviewers, describe every shirt built from 33 individually hand-cut pieces, stitched at roughly 19 stitches per inch, with collars using a bias cut, woven interlining sewn in loose rather than bonded with adhesive, a genuinely non-fused collar construction. The side seams get a hand-sewn 5-sided gusset for reinforcement, a detail almost nobody at the mass market end of this list bothers with, because there's no adhesive layer to fail, and the wear point most cheap shirts split at is engineered against from the start. Turnbull and Asser dress shirts run several $100s retail, roughly 5 to 7 times what a Banana Republic fused shirt costs. Nobody's arguing that gap away, but it's worth noticing what that money is actually buying. A collar that structurally cannot delaminate, because delamination requires a glue bond that was never used in the first place. When a shirt maker has been in continuous production since before the light bulb was common in most homes and still refuses to fuse a collar, that's not nostalgia. That's a standard that's outlasted every trend this list has torn through. 6 brands, 1 shortcut, 6 different disguises for the same decision. Van Heusen buried the fusing under a wrinkle-free finish that fights its own adhesive. Kenneth Cole wrapped it in stretch fabric and called the collar band flexible instead of glued. Perry Ellis inflated the price tag so the permanent discount could look like a deal instead of the real number. Express hid it inside a trend cycle, betting you'd replace the shirt before the collar had time to fail. H&M didn't hide anything. It just built to the absolute floor and let the price explain itself. And Banana Republic charged the most of anyone on this list for the exact same fused interlining sold everywhere else for half the money. Different marketing, different price brackets, the same glue holding the same collar together for the same limited number of washes. Here's what to actually do with that the next time you're standing in front of a rack. Pinch the collar point between your thumb and finger and flex it. If it feels stiff, almost like cardboard, and gives off the faintest crackle when it bends, that's fused, and it will eventually bubble no matter what the price tag says. If it feels soft and moves as one piece with no separation between the layers, that's floating construction, and it's built to outlast the shirt's own buttons. No label tells you this, no salesperson volunteers it, the collar tells you if you bother to check. If you own a shirt from any of the 6 brands on this list, or one that surprised you in either direction, drop it in the comments. I want to know which collar bubbled first and which one you're still wearing 5 years later. And if you haven't seen where this same fused versus stitched pattern showed up in suits, go back and watch our breakdown. 8 suit brands to never buy, and 3 that are actually worth it. Same test, same industry-wide shortcut, different garment, and it's already been watched by over 400,000 people who wanted to know what was actually inside their jacket. Same question here. Different piece of clothing, same answer waiting under the collar.